Welcome to Something Nice with Dinano. Thank you very much for joining us on this another special episode. We have a Something Nice with Dinano friend, someone who's not a stranger here, Sar Ahmadiel Ben Yehuda. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Brother Dinano. It's always a pleasure to be here with you in person. Yeah, loving it and looking forward to our conversation.
How have you been?
100. Been great. Always good to get back to the family here in Southern Eden and to touch base with family and friends. And we bring greetings from all of our brothers and sisters in Northeast Africa, in the city of Dimona, Israel. And looking forward to your visit to the Village of Peace in the coming year. Hint.
Putting me under pressure. When does your year start?
Well, I was referring to the Gregorian calendar year, with the January, February, March, but our Hebraic year begins in the spring of the northern hemisphere, which begins sometime usually in April, late March, early April, and then it's always 2 weeks before Passover. So, but I was referring to the coming calendar year.
Are you willing to fund my trip?
I'm willing to host you. I'm willing to take care of your food and your lodging. You get there, pick you up at the airport, and maybe a little something you can help us move around on the land. But other than that, we got you covered.
How is your currency there?
It's the currency is called the shekel. Mm-hmm. It's about 3.5 to the dollar, and I don't try to keep up with the rand, so don't ask me what that is in rand.
You should be keeping up with the rand, because apparently your days as the superpower and the super currency are numbered.
Well, who do you mean by your? I don't relate to America.
Your accents.
Oh no, you can't judge me by my accent, bro. No.
Okay. Look, it's something I'm considering, but now I'm jobless.
No, you're in control of your time now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's a plus.
The last time we spoke, sir, we were talking about the promised land or the location of Israel.
Right.
Tell me, is Israel a person or is it a location? What is it?
Interesting question. First, let me, as always, give honor and praises to the Holy One of Israel, to Yahweh, who is anointed, and to all those that are in search of truth and justice, peace, mercy, love. On this plane of our existence, I greet you in the Hebrew tongue, in the African Hebraic tongue. Shalom Aleichem, peace be unto you. That indeed was our last engagement. We were dealing with the issue of where was the promised land. Israel is both a people and a land. You could actually say it's even a consciousness. It's actually it's an identity that leads one to purpose, and that's something I definitely want to get into in a later part of this particular segment for us. But the biblical boundaries of the Holy Land are found in the book of Genesis, 15th chapter, 18th verse. What the I think your thumbnail and what was focused on the program that you and I were involved in with Ron and a couple other brothers, focused on what I would call a descriptive adjective of the land, referring to it being a place that flowed with milk and honey. And of course, that's metaphorical. It's just simply talking about abundance. I don't think we'd look for literal milk and honey flowing through some land areas.
Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we look for literal, not necessarily flowing? We know the adjective, what it means. Is it an adjective? I always get these things messed. Yeah. So it describes the noun, right? It's an adjective. Yeah.
Right.
So flowing with milk and honey.
Right.
It probably, as you say, it's in abundance, not necessarily really flowing. Why wouldn't it be literal?
Oh, because, so many things you can't take literally when you're talking about biblical terminology. heaven? Are we actually literally looking for a messianic personage to fly in on a cloud, or do we take the high road literally and assume it to be a high elevated consciousness, in fact, a doctrine and a word that we should be hearing and looking and not so much looking for, but listening for? And so that ties into the scripture. It says, "My sheep shall hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow." So obviously, the listening part of it is the focus, and not expecting to see some white or black guy on a literal cloud coming down from that heaven. So biblically, in Hebraic understanding, this is the high elevated place in man. It is our mind. It is our consciousness. And so that is a more sensible way to interpret those things than I think what many of those who've been under Christian influence are expecting. Literally, someone to be on a cloud. And we've flown in planes before, and we have no expectations of seeing anybody up there at any point in our lives. I mean, and if we did, we would swear it was a hologram or some other type of illusion. We've got to be real about this. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And then there's, I can't remember, it's in the New Testament. It says, when you turn aside from the truth, you are turned unto fables, myths, and deception. And so those are the kind of things that we were born into a society where we teach our children to expect a fat white guy with a red suit to come down our chimneys, even though we don't have chimneys in most of our dwellings. And the egg-laying Easter bunnies during that time of the year that leave chocolate eggs somewhere. And so those things at a young age did two things. It set us on a path of adopting mythology as part of our expectation, and it also left us cynical towards what our parents had taught us and what religion has taught us, because we knew that can't be. You lied to us.
Can we go to the verse before I get carried away? Because when people like you speak, my mind wanders and starts questioning a lot of things. And I don't want to get to that just now, but you made reference to a scripture in Genesis chapter 15. What was the verse?
15, starting at the, let's see.
There's verse
Should
13.
be verse 18.
Okay. Should we go straight to 18?
18th verse, yeah.
Okay, verse 18. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram.
The promise, hence promised land.
Okay. Saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from a river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates.
Of course, the river Egypt is the Nile. And the Euphrates, so between the Nile and the Euphrates, that you're checking what version you got there, huh? This is not, we don't have trick Bibles here. It actually says this. So these are the boundaries. If we're dealing with the promised land, there it is very clearly. This is the origin of the promise that was made unto Abraham and his seed between the Nile and the Euphrates. Now, interestingly, the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, and many people who are adherents to Judaism regard a greater Israel. So they don't accept the small little tiny sliver of land known as the state of Israel today as the promised land that they expect. They have also, they abide by this particular definition, and they call it greater Israel. And so, they probably do have designs. Not probably, they do have designs on the entire region as being up under their sovereignty at some point. We feel that it is part of the eventually sovereign territory to be given to Abraham and his seed. However, it will not come by means of military conquest. It will come as a result of a spiritual alignment with one another, with people, and with the land itself, where all of these boundaries, current boundaries, will dissolve. We know that these boundaries were created by Eurocentric colonial design, and they did nothing to serve us and have created a lot of chaos and confusion on the planet. And so we feel that will eventually overturn. We're playing the long ball here. It may not happen certainly in many people's lifetimes, but nevertheless, we are headed in that direction.
See, I was talking about my mind. I'm still thinking about that land of milk and honey.
Let me say this, Dinano. We'll never get too far in our conversation if we focus in on each scripture. I think your audience is rather sophisticated, and they can go back and take time, put it on pause, and actually go to those passages. But if we were to interrogate each particular reference, we might be here till tomorrow. And that's up to you, because I can be here.
I think they're actually quite simple, my audience. Mm-hmm. They're convinced that the promised land is not where you come from or where you've been.
Okay.
They truly believe it's in Africa. I have concerns with that.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see the platform as a platform of people who want to learn, who are open to other ways of seeing things. But it looks like most of you, the people that watch this program, are quite set on their ways. I personally used to be like that, and I hope we all reach a point where we're a bit open-minded when it comes to this.
But I also would ask your audience to be intellectually honest, and then say, what does this particular verse spell out? Either you accept it or you don't. I mean, this very clearly speaks to what the covenant, the promise was, and what the boundaries were. And so, we can agree to disagree. That's not a problem. But in a case like this, both of us can't be right.
You saw me look at the version, right?
Yeah.
I think I did a almost deep study on this matter recently with a brother called Yishai Hoffer.
I watched one of the segments.
Yeah. We went through a couple of versions, Bible versions. I think we also went to Bible Hub. If my memory serves me well, the reason why I checked if it's the King James, this particular version, if my memory serves me well, I think there might have been some versions who did not include the word Euphrates.
I don't think I saw that segment, and I don't doubt that does that's the case in some versions. I don't know.
So if that's the case, then if there are versions which do not include Euphrates, what would be your grounds on that? Would you still, for lack of a better word, swear by it being that place when Euphrates is not named, and maybe that the river that is named? I actually need to go and check so that we don't discuss hypotheticals, right?
Yeah, sure.
We discuss facts.
And
I'll do it now. Yeah.
And that's what we have to end up doing, and being intellectually honest. I'd have to say I don't know, but I'll say this: I doubt that there's any version that you could bring before me that would supersede the Hebraic understanding and the Hebraic root, which refers to the Euphrates as Hafrat. And so, that's definitely, in fact, in that particular passage, the Euphrates is the only river. I'm sorry, not that particular passage, but if you go to Genesis, the 2nd chapter, you find reference to the garden that was eastward in Eden and the 4 rivers that fed that land. And so one of those is identified as the Euphrates, and that's the only name that survived centuries and centuries of translation. But there's a version of a Bible that was given to the enslaved Africans in America that's literally called the Slave Bible. And 3/4 of the Bible is missing. And it's all of the references that deal with Moses and freedom and liberation, et cetera, like that. And it leaves in, conveniently, the parts that say, slaves, be obedient to your masters.
Let me get my phone. And then, hope I don't trip over something here. Okay, I need to go to Bible Hub and just check this thing, so that I'm not talking about hypotheticals and things of that nature. The Hebrew Bible, do you know how it puts this?
Pretty much accurately as the King James translators did.
I'm not disputing what you're saying. It's just that there's this thing at the back of my mind that I have to go to. So it's Genesis 15, chapter 15. Oh, goodness.
A lot of the modern generation, and I would think a lot of your audience here are of the black consciousness mindset that it became quite logical in their framework to accept the Bible, especially a King James version, as a quote unquote white man's book. And my question is, what kind of white man's book refers to Egypt and Ethiopia almost 1,500 times?
No, actually, a lot of them
Yeah.
prefer the King James.
Okay.
Some, not all of them, some have come through saying King James was actually a black man.
I've heard that. Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, but to be fair and to go along with what you're saying, most translations have it as Euphrates, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple here that have a different word. One translation, which is called the Young's literal translation, it says the river Frat.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
That's the Hebraic, Frat.
Okay, so you've heard of that,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
There's another one here. It says, the New Heart English Bible. It says Perath, Perath. Have you heard of that one?
It sounds, it's obviously using the same root syllables, or not syllables, but consonants as Frat.
Now I want to go to the Hebrew and see what the Hebrew says on this one. I'll show it to you. It's the last word, Perat, I think. Can you see?
Mm-hmm. Frat. Yeah, that's how that's the Hebraic word for the Euphrates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sar wins this one, but I'm still stuck.
We're not in competition here.
I'm still stuck on the flowing with milk and honey. What do you think that means?
Simply a metaphor for an abundant land, and that leads to the fact that Israel might be considered desert or barren land now, but that totally discounts the history of the children of Israel and their relationship to the God of Israel and what happened to that land and why the children of Israel aren't there anymore, or why they were put out and are only now in the recent decades returning back to that land. The land underwent literal burning. And I'm going to give you another scripture on this. Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, starting at, the 45th verse through the 48th verses. Ezekiel 20.
We're going there.
Okay.
Ezekiel 20. Ezekiel is a major prophet, right?
Major prophet, definitely.
Towards the end.
Ezekiel 20, 45th through the 48th verses.
20 verse
45 through 48.
Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward the south, and drop thy word toward the south, and prophesy against the forest of the south field. And say to the forest.
One moment. When you see south there, a King James version says Negev. And in the Hebraic, it's Negev.
Is that King James?
This is a King James.
It says Negev in your Bible?
Yes.
What type of King James am I reading from?
You probably have, there's the old King James and there's a new King James. And this is the 1967 authorized King James. But Negev is the word that's
No, I've
used,
heard of
and it
Negev,
means
yeah.
south.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean south like as far south as you can go. So anybody that will want to say sub-Saharan Africa, that's what it's referring to. It's not. It's referring to the southern region of the Negev or the land of Judah and that surrounding land. And to this day, that's known as the Negev. And it means actually dry. It means dry. So continue.
I was at 47, right?
That's starting
And
at 47.
say to the forest of the south, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will kindle a fire in thee, and it shall devour every green tree in thee, and every dry tree. The flaming flame shall not be quenched, and all faces from the south to the north shall be burned.
That's good. So what we're seeing there, if you read the scriptures and you read the adjectives that apply to the king, I'm not king, but to the children of Israel, Israel was a rebellious, stubborn, hard-headed, backsliding, wicked, sinful, stiff-necked people. And there are other adjectives that I'm sure I've forgotten, but you get the picture. And so if these are your children, at some point a responsible parent, in this case our father, okay, he evicted our people. We were put out of that land as divine chastisement. That's the whole history of the children of Israel, and that's the whole root and substrate of the existence of the so-called lost tribes. They got put out of that land. But the land did not remain in the pristine state that it once was. The Negev is no longer a forest. It was burned up. It's dry. But the difference is that it's not a desert like the Sahara. It's soil, but it's just dry. And all that's needed is for the people to get back on that land. And if you don't mind, you can go to the book of Hosea.
We're going to go to Hosea.
Okay.
How do you determine then that this one is literal and not figurative, like the land of milk and honey?
Well, we can see it. We can see that the land was burned up. We know that there was a forest there. There's evidence of it. There are seeds that are present in the soil that date back 1,000 through 3,000 years. There are date trees that have been cultivated using from ancient seeds that were found in the soil. Date palm trees. And so that exists. It's a known fact that the Sahara used to be a freshwater, not freshwater, but a similar green area. And to this day, the aquifers of fresh water lie underneath the Sahara. So Muammar Gaddafi understood that, and he tapped into that source of water and had begun to regreen the desert. And so it's known geologically that these things are part of that, but there's never been any flowing honey and milk through the land. I mean, again, I wouldn't even try to look for something of that nature, you know?
Okay. Hosea, let's go to Hosea.
Hosea, go to Hosea 4, because there's a progression, a 3-step progression here, using the prophets. We're going to go to Hosea. It's right up. 4. And then we're going to go to Isaiah 35.
Hosea 4.
Hosea 4, and then Isaiah 35.
Okay, I've got Hosea 4, yeah. Which verse in Hosea?
Usually start at the first verse, but for the sake of time, we can go to just read 1 and 2, and then the third verse is really what I want to focus on.
Hear the word of the Lord, O people of Israel. Okay, let me read from the King James. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. For the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land.
Okay, so this is an indictment of the people. It was the people's behavior that was causing a controversy with Yah. Now, if you got a controversy at your former employer, you had a problem with your paycheck or your promotion or even keeping your job. If you got a problem with your professor, you're not going to get a good grade. If you've got a problem with your spouse, you're not going to get the benefits of being married. But if you have a problem with the Creator, in all of those areas and more, you're going to have problems. So that's just speaking to this dynamic of the disobedience again of the children. So second verse, this is more of the behavior outlined here.
By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood toucheth blood.
Confusion, chaos. Third verse.
Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish with the beasts of the field and with the fowls of heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea
So it says
also shall be taken away.
So it says the land shall mourn. What could that? Now that's metaphor, because you don't expect land to actually be crying and sad. But how would the land mourn? What would you expect to see? Would you expect to see a withering away of the vegetation, a withering away of the animal, beasts of the field, the fowl? It says it right there that everything is going to languish.
Yeah.
And so if you get to the end of the fifth verse, it says,
Therefore, the fifth verse, therefore shalt thou fall in the day, and the prophet also shall fall with thee in the night, and I will destroy thy mother.
do we not refer to Earth as Mother Earth, Mother Nature? So the destruction of the chaos of the environment, the phenomenon known as global warming, is all a part of a universal corrective force that is being orchestrated by the Creator. If a bacteria or a fungus or something invades our bodies, one of the very first responses is that our bodies heat up. We develop a fever to fight the infection. And so we look at global warming as simply a way that the Earth is fighting back this evil idea on the planet that is related as a virus. It's like a virus that must be defeated. That's how we see it. Isaiah 35, and let's close out this trilogy showing the connection of the people of the land and the land itself. Isaiah 35, verse 1.
Just reading verse 1 here.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Very beginning.
The wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them.
The dry places, the desert land, the barren areas, wilderness and solitary place shall be glad for who?
For them.
This chapter is referring to the return of the children of Israel, because that ultimately was the plan of Yah to bring his people back. Once we learned the mistakes of our ways, and once we reconciled and turned back unto him, we would come back into the land, and the land would do what? It says it right here. And the desert.
Where are we now?
First verse. We're still in the second part of the first verse.
The wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad.
They're going to be the land is going to be glad.
For them.
It's going to for them, for the people. And it will respond.
The desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose.
So the desert is going to rejoice. No longer will the land be in a state of mourning, sadness, gloomy. It's going to feel great that her people are back again in the land. And there's a relationship there. And when we treat the land appropriately and properly, when we tend to it, when we embrace it, when we literally walking on it and talking with it, because you can talk to the plants. Plants. Not Marcus Garvey. George Washington Carver was a well-known African-American scientist, and he had amazing fruit from what's called soybean and peanuts. He had 450 uses from 2 plants, and they asked him, "What's his secret?" He said, "I talk with the plants." Now, as a young child coming out of America and that Western idea, I said, okay, talking with the plants is something, he's special, But I've come to understand that indeed we have a relationship with plants. Plants may not have a brain that we know of, but they certainly are intelligent. They've hooked up electrodes to plants. And if we come in this room and I think of torching the leaf with a match, that plant sends off what are measurable distress signals. if that person, if I came back in the room an hour later, that plant recognizes me and begins to send forth those same distress signals. So plants are intelligent. Now multiply that exponentially and look at the destruction of the rainforest through the Congo. Look at the destruction of the Amazon. What is the effect of those distress signals going out when they're cutting down rainforests at the rate of a football field a second? And more importantly, who's receiving it? And most importantly, what is the response that is evoked when that signal is received? So again, there's another level of intelligence on the planet and amongst the creation that we've lost touch with. But Israel was the former of all things. Jacob was the former of all things. And it is we who've been out of cycle, and it is we who cast the rest of the planet into cycles of darkness and destruction. But we're getting back together now.
Just off the top of my head, I'm not thinking deeply about this. I think I remember the last time we spoke about this, maybe not the last time, the other time we spoke about this. Now it was just me and you. This issue of the land of milk and honey came up. I think your response was a bit different then. You had asked if the people that claim that the promised land is here in sub-Saharan Africa, you had asked if they had gone or ever been to the Levant. And I think you made reference to some projects that are happening there, some greening, I'll call them greening projects, which were projects that maybe something like, what do they call it, the kibbutz?
No, kibbutz is a communal social model.
Okay.
We're actually a kibbutz. We fit their description. We didn't seek to be a kibbutz, but we fit that model of sharing and communal living.
Okay.
So we qualify as a kibbutz in the Israeli kibbutz system.
So it has nothing to do with
I don't think that was me
greenery.
that brought that up. Well, no, people talk about the greening of the desert. And even the early pioneers of the state of Israel, they prided themselves on turning the desert green. But their approach, again, going back to what, as I was saying about how this process takes place, you can't force the land through your scientific methods. You will not be able to force the land to produce. You might get results, but you won't get. It's the difference between rape and rapture. If you're trying to woo a sister, you can't force the land to give up her treasures. So it has to be by virtue of a relationship and not a domination. And see, that's all part of, when it says that man would have dominion over the earth, it's not dominion as in dominate. It's more like being a husband, being a caretaker.
Taking care and
that's the difference.
Nurturing.
Yeah.
all
That's a
those
matter
things.
of interpretation, And so the westernized idea and model has always been one of domination and subduing as opposed to living in harmony.
I think before we started, I said this to you. And personally, I feel like, okay, we've exhausted this discussion on the channel. And I'm sure there are other things that are very important for the children of God to be looking at, focusing on. What are we supposed to be doing? What's our purpose? We know that we are the children of God. Yeah, we might not agree on where the promised land is.
Sure.
Is that the end and the be all and the end all of what we are here to do? Find the promised land? Maybe not. There are other things.
Yeah.
When you were here in the studio the last time, I had said, I'm very interested in the way of living of the African Hebrew Israelites. That's what the movement is called, right?
Yes.
But there are also other things that we can focus on.
Yes.
What's at the top of your mind in terms of where we need to shift our focus towards as the children of God?
First, I think it's critical we do turn this page, and I will be addressing in the future all of the arguments of Ron and others who do believe that sub-Saharan Africa is the promised land. I will be addressing them categorically. It's not a problem to do that. You know, there's a logical explanation to each of them, and frankly, you know, our history is such that our spiritual leader led us out of America based on the return to our identity as Hebrew Israelites 58 years ago. And I do believe that's probably before Ron was even born. But I've never heard Ron give any credence or credit to any of the fathers and pioneers and mothers and elders that made it possible for us to be here this day with this knowledge of our identity. So allow me first to say that our knowledge of identity is based on the Prophet Crowdies, the William Crowdies, the Bishop C.H. Masons, the Nat Turners, and others who kept alive, you know, the identity. And that's important. And even today, many of the Hebrew congregations throughout America are teaching knowledge of identity. But on arrival, after being led out of America in 1967 by our spiritual leader, Ben-Ami HaMashiach, in 1967, leaving America, spending 2.5 years in Liberia en route back to the Promised Land, on arrival, the next day, the question for us became, now what? And, you know, because that identity led us back to this side. And the answer to that question, Brother Dinano, now what, was that we had to develop and begin to foster the knowledge of redemption, because that ultimately is the purpose of the children of Israel, to be a light unto the nations. And as Hebrews, through Abraham's seed, we were to be a blessing unto all the nations. So how does that tangibly manifest itself? And one of the primary ways is what you even suggest about health. And so being in that land, turning our attention to the next steps in being there, we turned our attention to what should we be doing. And in the arena of, first of all, of social cohesion, we developed communal living. We realized that in a world of 9 billion people, at least that's what some people say it should be on the planet now. Just yesterday I saw something about they've made some mistake. I don't know if it's should be higher or lower. It doesn't matter. But we know that the planet is not overpopulated. It's not. It's simply the way that people live that make the planet uninhabitable if we keep pursuing and living according to that idea.
On what you're saying right now, the planet not being overpopulated, I saw something not too long ago saying, I'm going to use an area that we know of, me and you. If we could put together all the people of the earth, I think standing a meter apart on the side, in front, back, they would be able to fit in an area as small as Gauteng.
I believe that. That's an amazing statistic, but I believe that. Yeah, it's the manner in which people are living, crammed up in the cities. But as soon as you leave outside, 5 minutes flying outside of any city, pretty much anywhere on the planet, when you look down, there's land for days. And so the idea of overpopulation, there are too many people living according to the wrong idea. If everyone thinks that they should have a private automobile just because they can afford one, that's foolish. And our lungs cannot afford it. Look at what's happened with China. China has mimicked the Western idea for what transportation should be like. And the pollution that affects Beijing, it'd be nice if it stayed in Beijing, but it doesn't. It blows around other parts of the planet. So our lungs cannot afford that. So there has to be another idea that takes over how we live, how we transport one another, how we deal with our farming. And so that kind of leads to diet. And that's a fundamental building block of health.
Still talking about overpopulation of certain areas.
And of a certain mindset.
Overpopulation of a mindset?
There's too many people with a wrong mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Herd mentality type mindset?
Sure.
We're
thinking, all only doing what we've been taught.
Yeah. This is what I've always done. This is what I know.
Yeah, right.
I'm thinking, where I used to work, had this thing of standing, looking over Senton, around 4 or 5. It would probably be up around 5:30, and the haze you'd see
Yeah.
at the top,
Yeah.
because that's all the people leaving their offices, going back home.
Right.
As you're saying, everyone is driving their own car,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's polluting
Right.
and leaving all this unsavory
Right.
particles in
Right.
the
Soup.
atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing we need to get out of this herd mentality of being crammed in these spaces,
Yeah.
because it speaks to our health, right?
For sure. For sure. All the particulate matter, all those black clouds of smoke chugging out of diesel engines, they literally are ingested in our bodies. They settle on our produce, and some of that is very difficult to wash off. And, it's interesting. Just the other day, I was with a brother. When we were in the Eastern Cape, he was talking about how he goes to a restaurant, and his son was working in the restaurant, and he started to wash the vegetables because he knows he's taught to wash the vegetables to get rid of the
Pesticides,
insecticides that have been sprayed that are basically oil-based and therefore stick to the produce, but you have to get some type of detergent wash to get it off, vinegar, with salt, whatever, to get it off. And when he did that in this restaurant, one of the managers came by and said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm washing the vegetables." He said, "We don't do that here." So his son called his father and said, "Don't eat at such and such a place anymore."
How come they don't do that?
Fast food. It's fast food or the industry itself. They're not concerned about our health. They're more concerned about their profits. So to take the time to wash the vegetables, to ensure that those harmful chemicals are not getting to the plate and therefore in our systems, that takes time away from other things they need to be doing, because they're not trying to pay workers just to wash vegetables. It's too much like right?
I don't know if I'm becoming a conspiracy theorist, because I'm thinking of something that happened yesterday. We're at one of these pharmaceutical retailers in the country, starts with a C. We bought some junk stuff. Then when we get to the till, the guy says, "Oh, you've got a free cool drink." Now, in South Africa, a cool drink is a fizzy drink.
Okay.
So the rest of the world, they call it a fizzy drink or a soda. You guys would call it a soda.
Right, soda.
We had bought, I think, 2 chocolates, so we get a free soda. I'm
soda.
thinking, this is diabetes injection, right?
Yes.
I'm thinking, why would these guys do this? I'm thinking, pharmaceutical. They can push us to have diabetes because they're going to sell us the control for this sickness. I don't know if I'm thinking too far about these things.
Dinano, that's not being conspiratorial. That's being truthful and honest. That's discerning the motive behind why they would do that. Why are we in a society that knows and has known for decades that cigarettes and other tobacco products cause cancer and emphysema and birth defects and a host of other problems? How is it that our government, that you would think is out to protect its citizens, how do you keep manufacturing cigarettes? How do you do that? How do you justify that? And it's all about the profit motive. It's all about the profit motive. And we could go along the line, not just tobacco. We can go to the meat industry. We can go to the dairy industry. We can go to the chemical additives that go in the food, the fast food, the steers and the other proliferation of fast food joints that since my time coming in and out of South Africa.
Oh, you've noticed. There's a KFC in every corner now. In the past 20 years, I don't know, the boom of KFC.
Yeah. Even our grandson, our young grandson, recognize KFC. And from a young age, they're being indoctrinated that this is how what you should consume. Look at alcohol. Your first taste of alcohol. I don't know if you still drink, but I'm sure you had a sip, at some young age.
First taste of alcohol, I was 11. I still remember.
And was it pleasant for you?
Nah.
It was like, what is this? Your taste buds rejected it. But all of the billboards and advertisements say, if you drink this liquor, you'll be popular, you'll be sexy, you'll be big man, Smoking, same thing. You'll be sexy if you smoke this brand. And so it's all a learned behavior, and we will override our natural senses. That first puff of smoke, what is this? Because the body's intelligent. But even the book of Job, I believe it's the 31st chapter of Job, Job says, is there iniquity in my tongue? And the answer is yes. We have acquired a taste for alcohol. We've acquired a taste for cigarettes. We've acquired a taste for meat on every plate, all three meals of the day. If anyone's still eating 3 meals a day, they're probably eating more. We're down to no more than 2 a day. But nevertheless, that is an acquired taste. So
let's go to the scriptures. How do they guide us on this matter of healthy living, healthy lifestyle? I think we know what is wrong for our bodies.
yeah,
We know alcohol
Inherently.
is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know smoking.
Yeah.
We know sugar, because everyone seems to be saying it now, right?
Yeah.
But man, the way sugar is so addictive.
right. It is.
I cut
it's
down
worse.
on
It's
sugar.
worse than cocaine. Scientifically, it's worse than cocaine.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And that's why all processed foods are laced with sugar, white
And
sugar,
salt.
salt, and oil. Because the combination of those three things set off,
Triggers in your brain.
they trigger
Addictive
the
triggers.
dopamine and everything, the reward factor. And so they know that if they scientifically calibrate the product with those three tastes, that it will cause you to literally be addicted.
And we're so protective of these things that destroy us. I remember, I'm going to call you out. I remember one of our members here, Bria Kongo, a sister who's been supporting the channel for the longest time. We had ended off on one of our previous chats saying that we need to look at this health thing. I think you had touched on issues with meat. And Brie said, Brie, when there in Canada, you said, our ancestors have been eating meat all along, So we tend to warm
Yeah.
up and,
Yeah.
I don't know, have a bond with these things.
Yeah.
Brie, we need to do better.
Let me digress for a moment before we go into the scripture. And you hear that all the time. If I'm in Ghana, I hear the Ashanti man saying, "Oh, the Ashanti man eats meat. He needs his meat." You go to Congo, the Luba, Ngala. We have to have our meat. Whatever Zulu, Xhosa, everybody claims they've got to have their meat. Maasai, of course, But the reality is, when you go back in generations, just a few generations, we were not consuming meat at every meal, maybe once a week, if that. And in fact, in the Congo, you should read the book called King Leopold's Ghost about the Congo and the force publique that went around to harass the indigenous people. Well, actually, they were indigenous recruits that were harassing their own people, but they would go and they would torch the fields. And so that meant that the people could not rely on the produce from the soil. They had to rely on animals. And so that is when the transition took place. But biblically, the very first instructions that we're given, and at this point, this is not Hebrew history. This is in the first chapter of the first book. This is before Hebrews came along, before Israelites came along. This is for man here. And so in the first chapter, in the 29th verse, we find the very first instruction for what our diet should be.
Where are we? Which book?
Genesis,
Okay.
in Hebrew known as Breshit, in a beginning, not in the beginning. That's another whole subject, isn't it?
Let's focus on
The
this one.
second
You
word is mistranslated.
You might have my mind wander now about other things. So you're saying it was not the beginning.
It's
it
not-
was one of the beginnings.
It was a beginning because you hear, and you know this, you hear us talk about a 6,000-year history. Well, the city of Jericho, which we'll go when you come, back to that again. When you come to Jericho, it's considered to be the oldest continuously inhabited city on the planet. Not the first city, nonetheless. We don't know if there were cities prior to that. We assume there were. They just don't have the evidence, archaeological evidence, to bear it out. But Jericho has a 10, almost 11,000 year history. So how does that fit with the Bible?
My father's not going to be happy with this. In most Adventists, we know the earth to be about 6,000 years old, and that's it.
And their science says that there are obviously rocks and evidence, geological evidence. 5 million years ago is what created the whole Olduvai Gorge and the Red Sea and
they talk
River
about
Jordan,
flaws
all
in
that.
carbon
5 million.
dating.
Yeah, and I have we have no
let's
honest
go to
perspective
this.
for
Let's leave
5
that one
million.
for another day.
We can't even imagine 6,000. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So in the 29th verse of the first chapter, we find that man is given instruction for his diet.
Let's read it. I'll read it here.
Okay.
And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat.
Or food.
Yeah, that's 29, right?
That's 29.
On a simpler version, and God said, Look, I have given you the seed-bearing plants throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food.
Mm-hmm. So therein lies the very first instruction for what we were to consume. If you get a new car, Dinano, you have a manual in the glove in the
glove box.
Glove box, okay, right.
Cabby hole,
I was
we call
thinking
it,
it was the boot, right? Okay. So and in the instructions, in fact, if you open up the hatch for the fuel, it will let you know very clearly what type of fuel you're to put in that vehicle. It will say petrol, 95, whatever, or it will say diesel. If you're in a tight and you need to use something, there's one type of fuel you can put in the vehicle. I don't remember which, if diesel can go into petrol or vice versa. And it will still run, but it won't run at its optimum. And there's another way that you could do it, and it will shut off before you get out the parking lot. And so it's very clear that we are capable, human beings are capable of being sustained by the consumption of flesh, but that is not the ideal or the optimum fuel for our bodies. We are not designed to consume flesh. We don't have fangs, we don't have claws, we don't have the enzymes that can break down flesh. We don't even have the enzymes to break down milk, animal milk. We can break down our mother's milk.
Hence lactose intolerance.
Lactose intolerance. 85% of people on the planet, most black people, are lactose intolerant. We cannot break down, and you end up bloating, gas, bad digestion, and ultimately bad health. The milk is a perfect food. It's a perfect food for baby cows, but not for human beings. A baby cow will grow from a big 100-kilo calf to a 400-kilo full-grown steer within a year or two.
Can adult males still drink milk from their women?
Is
it for kids?
I'll leave that for them. They can try that with their spouse. We'll leave it for them. But the reality is, we still consume milk. We make milk from nuts and herbs and seeds and what have you, rice milk and soybeans, etc. So milk is still part of our
Why
diet.
the need if there's no need? Why go through all those extra miles to get milk-like
It's
beverages?
We like beverages. You eat and you drink, and you want variety in your life. You don't want something every day. Same thing. And so there are different products that all come from plant-based sources, and they're rather simple to make. I like a peanut butter drink.
Oh, is it?
I use hot water and a little honey or maple syrup, and make a shake out of peanut butter.
I've had macadamia. It's quite nice.
Yes.
Recently had it when I went home.
Yeah.
I prefer almond.
Almond milk, sure. You can
I
do it.
can't stand soya milk.
You can get you a couple handfuls of almonds, soak it overnight, blend it, and strain out the skin, and it's a very pleasant drink. But here, back to the biological makeup. Our intestines are very, very long. Our intestines match other fruitarians, people who eat fruits. And fruits are not just mangoes and pears, but fruits in this sense are the literal fruit from any plant, whatever it is that bears the seed. And so that's key there. That reference says every plant-bearing seed, every green herb-bearing seed, that shall be to you for your food. If it's not carrying a seed, then you may not need to consume it. And particularly as modern man has begun to tangle and to tamper with the plants to create seedless watermelons and seedless grapes. It doesn't just make it more convenient for us when we're eating. It also tampers with the genetic makeup of that produce, and it will ultimately have a negative effect on us. So we eat fruits in season. And back to the intestine. The reason that our intestines are long is because those animals that eat other animals, they have short intestines, which allows for that decaying and rottening flesh to quickly pass out of the body. So it's no secret that when you eat a lot of meat, you have problems with colon cancer, rectal cancer, and because the rectum is very close to the male prostate gland, that toxicity that collects in those organs can migrate to other organs. And that's one of the major causes. And this can be Googled. It migrates to the prostate, and that's one of the major causes of so many of us suffering from prostate cancer and other diseases.
I know diet can be a laborious conversation, but it's very important.
Critical.
What we take in
Everybody's
is
got to
critical
eat.
to how we live, right?
Everybody's got to eat. There's two major biological drives in human beings, and the first one is to eat, to sustain ourselves so we can keep going, and the other is to procreate. And both of those areas, the spirit of air, or Satan, satanic influence, has entered in, knowing the importance of those two drives. And when it enters in and takes us out of a divine cycle, you end up with disease. So in the area of diet, you end up with obesity, you end up with disease, you end up with gluttony. In the area of procreation, you end up with promiscuity, you end up with broken families, you end up with sexual diseases, etc. And so it's no wonder, and it's the reason why we have to return to discipline, dietary discipline, and discipline in other areas.
I think it goes beyond discipline. Here's something I've noticed. It looks like these lifestyle diseases are more prominent in what we touched on earlier, these urban areas.
Yeah.
Right? This fast way of living.
Right.
Which would lead you to fast foods and a fast life, which is all detrimental to your health.
Yeah.
So maybe a kibbutz, I don't know how you call it, type of living, communal, maybe outside of these metropolitan areas that require fast everything. Need to get something fast to eat because I need to get out of here and get to work, need to leave work and be home on time. So when I get home, I can't cook, need to put something in the microwave, which is all detrimental to the health.
Nuking the food.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do we get out of this lifestyle? What should we do? I know from my Adventist background, Ellen White said it, get out of the cities.
I was about to say. That's the first step, the first logical step. The first step is got to change this. Thought precedes all substance. And the scriptures guide us, says, seek ye the old paths. And when you go back to the village life.
Let's go to that scripture. I love scripture. I don't know if you're going to remember it, but maybe we can Google it.
Yeah, I'm sure you could Google it.
I love scripture. And we need to convince people through the word.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Seek ye the old paths.
I'm going to ask, is it literal?
And-
Or is it actually talking about roads and routes?
no.
I'm going to
but
keep
see,
taking
there
you
go.
there.
There you go. Okay.
Seek ye
There
the
you
old
go.
paths.
It is absolutely metaphorical in this sense. Go back to an older,
And
simpler,
walk therein.
and
Okay.
walk therein. Right.
Jeremiah 6:16.
Right. Right. And I don't want to get away from, you mentioned Ellen White, and I don't want to get away from those who would say that, well, Moses said we could eat this animal, we could eat that animal. I want to touch on that. So
Okay.
let's not leave that. But what do we say, 6 and 16?
Jeremiah 6:16. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way? And walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls.
Right. But what did
But
our
they
people
said,
say?
we will not walk therein.
We will not. We were, again, this is the history of the children of Israel. They rebelled
Israel's
consistently.
constant rebellion.
Oh, that's the caption?
Yeah, that's the
See?
that's the heading.
So that's the reality. So the answer to what you asked me would be, if you go back to your village literally, do you find prostitution? You may find, as one of the elder sisters here, and I know her, I'm trying to think of her name. She's a professor here. Very, very wise woman. She said, you may find what's called the village wife, but you won't find somebody walking around on the corners of the village prostituting herself. You don't find homeless in a village. You don't find where elders have been cast aside and put away, in a village setting. The children, literally, as the African proverb goes, it takes a village to raise a child. You won't find that kind of of disregard of the way that you see a child going astray, and you, as just an elder in the village, don't say, hey, come here. And you don't tell the parents, hey, I saw your son or your daughter, and I saw, or you bring them home to them. And so that is the old path that we're referring to here. And so in our village, known as the Village of Peace, we have that kind of mindset once again, where all of the children are our collective responsibility. And so we don't worry about a child running out and getting to the street. He may have a way to go to get to the street, but before he gets there, someone's going to see him and say, hey, come here. And we'll take them or direct them back home. So that's the old path that this is referring to. And that's how to get back to sanity. We have to stop, turn around, and go back. Ben-Ami wrote something in his book, Messiah and the End of This World. The Messiah and the End of This World, not the end of the world, okay? And he was saying that this fast, modern, developed technological world is breakneck speed headed over the cliff. They know that. They know that it is not a sustainable way of life. So we, as the third world, trying to catch up with that world, we have an advantage. We're able to see that, man, the direction that they're headed in, and we're trying to follow behind them, not such a wise course of action. We should stop, turn around, and go back. And in doing so, that puts us in first place. Their world, to the contrary, they couldn't stop if they wanted to. If they applied the brakes right now, they would still skid and go over. They're trapped, And so that's our reality. And that brings me to, we mentioned it earlier, Frantz Fanon, the wretched of the earth. Frantz Fanon was
Before you get there,
Yeah, sure.
I don't know why, seemingly, as South Africa, we've adopted the Western way of living. Okay, I've never been outside this country, but I've got the sense that probably more than any other African country, I don't know if it speaks to the population ratio of Europeans in this country, but I'm even thinking of what happened during the COVID, I nearly said hoax. But we were seemingly the most affected African country. I don't know if it speaks to our diet, our way of living. what we eat and what we put in, the way we live, if it's influenced by this 8% of the people that live with us here, because the rest of Africa or most of Africa was not really that much affected.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And even I would venture to say that in your rural areas that they weren't so badly affected here. But without question, it's the European idea that has placed South Africa in the forefront of, many people think South Africa leads the way for the rest of the continent of Africa. You're looked up at in terms of development because of the highways, because of the supermarkets and the high rises, et cetera.
The many KFCs.
Yeah, exactly. But we have to change the way that we look at that and realize that, no, that more reliance on KFC means less dependence on a good home-cooked meal. And women abdicating that responsibility in a household now, the modern generation, has led to our greater percentage and correlation of sickness, without question. And so South Africa is leading in those categories, and it is because of that European idea of what development is and should be, and we've got to turn that around. We've got to change what we perceive as advanced, as good, as desirable, and get back to some sanity.
And over-reliance on mass producers and supermarkets can also be a disadvantage. I'm thinking in 2021, there were big protests in the country in July, KZN, some parts of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
We were told we were running out of bread. Shelves were running empty.
What does it take to make a loaf of bread?
We're told that people have nothing to eat, right?
Right.
And it's over-reliance on these mass producers of whatever they are feeding us.
Right. No. It goes back to, I was going to say that, would I be wrong in saying that your parents even were able to go out in their yard and pick fresh cabbage or fresh vegetables that
my mother did more than my dad.
Right.
We had strawberries.
One generation.
We had strawberry. Actually, my dad also had a guava tree. A friend of ours from back home, he actually reached out to my elder brother saying,
right,
we left that place in 1992.
Yeah.
And this guy was calling my brother saying, that guava tree that your dad planted way back is still here. Obviously, he's interested because he's into farming, this guy.
Okay.
Right? Any other person probably wouldn't be bothered by that.
Okay.
So we did have those things. I'm trying in a small way. I've got my blueberry tree.
All right.
I've got a nachi tree that's growing. You guys call it satsuma. It's a citrus.
Oh, okay.
Soft citrus.
Okay.
We call them nachis here.
Okay.
Cologne. It's the Afrikaner word. Anyway, so I'm trying these things. I was giving some blueberries to my
beginnings are small and hard.
To my wife, yeah. And she was saying, wow, these blueberries taste much better than the W shop that we usually buy our blueberries from, right? So we're trying in a small way. Hopefully we will not get discouraged.
No, that's key.
Frantz Fanon.
My mind's going everywhere too.
It's fine.
In the scriptures, it says that we were created from the dust of the earth. That's a mistranslation. In the correct translation is we were created from the minerals of the soil. Dust is a nuisance. Dust causes you to cough. Dust gets on your equipment. You got a problem. It gets on your glasses. You got a dust. Dust is, but minerals of the soil more specifically identifies what we were created from. So how do we verify that scripture? Is there iron in your body?
Oh, yes.
And there's iron in the soil. Is there calcium in your body? Absolutely. If you don't have enough iron, you have anemia.
Of iron and calcium.
If you don't have enough calcium and phosphorus and magnesium, you have brittle bones. You have osteoporosis.
Yeah.
And on and on. So mineral deficiencies are directly related to dis-ease. And so being formed from the dust of the earth, the minerals of the soil, what was the diet we were given to replenish those minerals? Carrots pull from the soil, green leafy vegetables pull the iron that you need, and on and on. Different seeds and herbs, and you know this is good for this particular mineral. This is good for that mineral. You can't take a lump of iron ore, bring it home, and make it palatable and biologically digestible.
You can get it from spinach.
You can get it from spinach. And so I remember I had malaria when I was in Ghana a few years back. And I told the woman that I didn't need a shot of potassium. She, before releasing me, the doctor at the hospital wanted to give me a shot of potassium. And I said, no, I don't need that. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to eat some bananas. She said, come back in a few days. And I did. I don't think I ate 4 or 5 bananas in those couple of days, but my potassium level was perfect. Bananas contain potassium.
Yeah.
The body is intelligent, and it knows how to extract what it needs to sustain itself, as long as we're eating a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, nuts, herbs, seeds, legumes, etc.
You said Frantz Fanon. You also said you need to touch on the meat thing.
Yeah.
In the Bible. I think after the flood, I don't know if that's where you wanted to go.
Let's just deal with that real quick, and then we'll get to Frantz Fanon, because it takes us in another area beyond just diet meat. Many people would respond and say, but Moses told us that you can eat this animal, you can eat this bird, you can eat this fish, but don't eat that animal.
Yeah.
And then don't even touch that animal. And we know
Leviticus 13:11, or is it 11?
There's a couple, Leviticus or Numbers. It does very specifically say that the beasts that are unclean and clean. And the key here is knowing, because on one hand it looks like a contradiction, because the same person who's attributed
Leviticus 11.
Leviticus 11.
If you want to read for yourself, Leviticus 11.
So on one hand it looks like a contradiction, because the person who told us to eat only the plants is that the writer attributed for that passage is Moses, and the same Moses is telling the people you can eat these animals. It seems like a contradiction on the surface.
But we know what happened, right?
From Genesis, the 3rd chapter, man is in what's called the fall, a decline, a degeneration, a fall away from the pristine, perfect condition. And so trying to, and by this time, the Israelites had been in captivity in Egypt for, some say 430 years, some say 200 and some odd years.
What do you say?
I'll stick with the 430.
Okay.
Much like even right now, and this is something amongst Israelites. There's a debate about when did the 400 years in modern day Babylon, modern captivity of America, when did that begin? There's some who say 1619. Which means that 2019 marked the end. And I was so glad to see 2019 come, because so many Israelites were saying that we were too early because we left before 2019. But there's also evidence that the earliest enslaved Africans were not arriving. They didn't arrive on 1619. They arrived in 2 different waves prior, even 150 years prior to 1619.
Okay.
So moot point, because either way you measure it, it should be over.
Yeah.
So Moses, trying to stabilize the decline and bring the people into some form of dietary discipline again, he institutes, okay, these animals, these birds, this fish you can eat, but these don't you eat. Did we respond appropriately? Did we follow his instructions?
No.
No, we did not. So the decline, the degeneration continued. But we've been able to go back to the beginning, and this is something we attribute to our spiritual leader, Ben Ami, again, because by the time he was leaving America in 1967, he had already begun the transition to vegetarian. He loved ice cream, for example, and ice cream dairy, okay? But he used dairy ice cream in Liberia to finance our being sustained for 2.5 years there, and it also purchased our tickets to leave Liberia and fly on to Israel. But on arrival in Israel, we transitioned collectively, according to his guidance and directives, that we would transition to vegan, no more dairy. But he loved ice cream, so there was no ice cream. So he developed from soybeans and soy flour, he began experimenting. He got another soft serve machine and began experimenting, and he developed a very tasty and texturized soy-based ice cream.
Oh, wow.
And we began to have ice cream, one of the sweet things in our lives in the early struggle days. And fast forward 50-some years, the next generation of youth now have taken the formula and have gone on, and we've got 30-plus flavors that they develop. You'll get a chance to taste that when you're visiting. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep jugging you with that one. So Moses gave us unto laws, and let's go to the book of Ezekiel. Go to the 20th chapter of Ezekiel and the 25th verse.
Ezekiel 20:25.
But yeah, start at the 24th. 20th chapter of Ezekiel 24 and 25.
24 and 25.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had not executed my judgments,
Mm-hmm.
but had despised my statutes, and had populated my
Polluted.
polluted my Sabbaths, and their eyes were after their fathers' idols.
Because they did not follow the instructions that we were given. Again, the history of the children of Israel, okay? What happened?
Am I in 26?
25.
25. Wherefore I gave them also statutes that were not good,
So he's
and
saying,
judgments whereby they should not live.
the Creator, through the prophet Ezekiel, saying, because they violated all those laws, instructions, I gave them instructions by which they would not live. And those judgments or guidelines for unclean and clean foods that Moses would fall in this category. They were not for the ultimate realization of this relationship and for healthy living and so forth. They were for a particular time, just to sustain us, just to get
Okay. Now I was
the
wondering
end of
where you're
this
going
period.
with this one.
Mhm.
I was wondering where you're going with this one. I think if my memory serves me well, the issue of the change in the diet came after the flood because vegetation was covered. Then God made providence for animal consumption.
Mm.
Am I correct?
I don't subscribe to that, but that is an interpretation. Yeah, but just in terms of but that's post chapter 3.
Yeah.
So
Should
so
be.
it's still in the fall. You know. So everything in this book past Genesis 3rd chapter is a record of a people in decline. And we have to interpret it in that context. It
Yeah.
cannot be abiding
No,
for
I get
eternity.
that. I
Okay.
get that. I agree.
All right.
But I just wanted to provide context.
Okay.
How we ended up eating meat when we're not informed or instructed or advised to eat it.
Yeah, well, I could see after the flood you would have to, they got hungry.
Yeah.
They had to eat something. The stores, unless they had enough in the storehouses.
There was no vegetation. That's the
Right.
understanding.
Yeah. Well, seaweed. We actually make seaweed a part of our diet.
Okay.
And it's in fact advised that our diets include some form of seaweed or sea vegetation, because the land, most of the land around the earth has been farmed in such a manner that the topsoil has eroded. And where did it go? It went into the sea. It washed into the seas. And so the micronutrients that you find, those minerals, particularly things like iodine, are found in seaweed, like kelp and so forth. And so you have to, if you're going to use those micronutrients, that's the source for it. That's one good source for it.
So my daughter is onto something because she loves her seaweed. Okay, you wanted to say something about
Frantz Fanon.
Yeah.
So Frantz Fanon was a psychologist. He was of African. I don't know what country he actually.
Algeria, I think.
Well, he definitely was studying the Algerian War and the psychology of the Algerian people. I don't know if he was actually Algerian.
I think so.
You think so?
I could
Okay.
be wrong, but he's Algerian.
Yeah.
Spent most of his life in France, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So in 1961, he wrote a well-known book called The Wretched of the Earth. And
I do have it here.
you do have it.
I thought so. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 1961, he writes this book. And in fact, the viewers, any of you viewers who are Zulu, you should be aware that just in the last year, in fact, I think the last time I came here, which was in the third month, in March, a Zulu translation hit the press here. So you might want to read it.
I didn't know of this. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder what it's called. Okay.
It's called Wretched of the Earth. I don't know what that translates to in Zulu, but I would just simply suggest to go to the conclusion. And in reading the conclusion, allow me to read some of the things he said. He says, "So my brothers, how is it that we do not understand that we have better things to do than to follow that same Europe?" Because he's been talking about this Europe that has done all this evil and is in decline. He says, "Come, comrades, the European game has finally ended. We must find something different. We today can do everything so long as we do not imitate Europe, as long as we are not obsessed by the desire to catch up with Europe. Europe now is running headlong into the abyss. We would do well to avoid it with all possible speed. Let us decide not to imitate Europe. Let us combine our muscles and our brains in a new direction." And so that basically synopsizes, again, what you asked. How do we make this adjustment? Diet is just one aspect of lifestyle. So within that, you have a huge, array of choices and modes and modalities and things that we do in the course of a day and a week and a month and a year. And we have to get away from what is obviously not working for their world. Why would we think that it would work for ours? We've got to change our direction, and the direction cannot change until we change the mindset, the thinking. Got to have new teachings. Got to have some new teachings. Allow me to share something here, because you get a lot of kickback when you start talking about people's diet. And when you talk about biblical issues, people want to separate that as if that has nothing to do with the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is the umbrella that governs every aspect of our lives. Diet, agriculture, it's all in education, relationships, you name it. It is all in clothing. It's all incorporated under an umbrella of spirituality. And so the dietary thing is just one aspect of it. And people want to say, I don't want to talk about that. But that's central. It's very central. And God has something to say about that, about what you should consume. So to verify the validity of what I've laid out in Genesis 1 and 29 and the prescribed preferable diet for us as people, China did a study. It's called the China Study. And there's a book by the same title, The China Study. It is the largest, most comprehensive study of the correlation between plant-based diets versus meat-based diets, or the consumption of meat, and the correlation of disease that's ever been done in the world. More Chinese than anybody else, right? And this study shows that people who consumed meat in areas of China and compared to areas of China where they didn't consume meat, the people who consumed meat had a 10-fold chance of developing cancer and other diseases. But the amazing thing is that when you look at the American diet, some people call it the standard American diet or the SAD, S-A-D diet, when you compare Americans' diet with the Chinese who did eat meat, Americans consume 10 times the amount of meat than the Chinese who ate meat.
Wow.
Exactly. And the correlation is clear. And the author of the book was one who was raised in America. He was raised on a farming family. He grew up with the idea that you got to eat meat, healthy, range-fed meat, and all this talk about range-free chickens
range.
and all free-range chickens and this and that. Other. No, they may be better than the animals that get all the vaccines and the
those injections.
right, all the injections and what have you. But
brine.
but
all
you're
those
not
things.
supposed to consume flesh. Period. It is not the prescribed divine diet for the human being. And you can make up all the excuses you want. You will not be, or should I say, you will be held accountable for your choices. There's no healthy meat that's okay to eat. Just isn't. And fish, by the way, because people always ask, well, do you eat fish? Do you eat chicken? Fish is an animal that lives in the sea, And I love
Where all the waste goes.
Right, exactly. And that's why Moses made the distinction of certain birds that were ravenous and that were scavengers, and the fish or the aquatic life, such as catfish, if it didn't have scales and
fins,
then you were not, because those were bottom feeders. They were literally sucking
the
up
roaches
the waste.
of the sea.
They were roaches of the sea. I love
Yeah,
it. And so it all makes sense. But we have to, again, understand the whole context of these and the time frame and where we were in human evolution. In this case, you would call it devolution.
I love that. Devolution.
Yeah.
Besides the eating, there's more to a better lifestyle than just the food we eat.
Much more.
Are there other aspects of this healthy living that you might want to touch on?
Sure. If you go in the average woman's wardrobe in her bathroom, you will find all kind of cosmetics. And most women in today's world, at least in the Western influence world, they wear makeup. And there are all kind of chemicals in the makeup. Those chemicals clog the pores for one. They're made from products that are animal based in many cases, and are certainly unpronounceable words. Your skin is your body's largest organ. It absorbs and it sweats, so it goes both ways. The membrane of the skin brings in and it excretes. If you don't wear the proper clothing, if you are wearing synthetic clothing, then your body excretes the sweat, and with it, the toxins that it's pushing out. And because synthetics don't absorb that sweat, that toxicity sits on the skin, and it is ultimately reabsorbed back into the body. Now, there's no scripture that says, thou shalt not wear synthetics, but there's no scripture that says, thou shalt not smoke either. So in the context of Moses saying, I set before you life and death, choose life, we know that in the context of 2025, we have to be wise and understand that a Mosaic personage today would have laws that would say, don't smoke and don't wear synthetics.
We've heard of microplastics. I think what you speak of now could be considered as microplastics. But beyond the cosmetics that are used by women, us men too.
Yeah.
Body lotions,
Yes.
your roll-ons.
If you can't eat it, if you can't consume it, it's probably not good to put it on your skin.
You reckon?
It's that simple. Yeah. It needs to be a natural shea butter, cocoa butter. There are natural things that our forefathers developed and used, and mothers developed for use for that type of thing. We want, but see, women who wear makeup, they're generally trying to enhance a feature. The idea of using lipstick was to enhance women who didn't have lips, actually. Europeans don't have thick, beautiful, luscious lips.
Yeah.
Our women have thick, beautiful, luscious lips.
Yeah.
And so the lipstick was to enhance and draw attention to that area, and you can look at how they apply it, and they go far beyond the lip line. And of course now they do what do they call it, Botox injections, the lips and the behinds, which they don't have either. So they weren't blessed with the hourglass shape that our women have, and so that's where it came from. So that's another example of not pursuing the European idea. The men. What was there was something else about the men. Can't think of it right off the hand. But there's so many areas that lifestyle exercise is essential. You know, in earlier times, our exercise was getting up, going to work, being out in the field. You know, you exercised all those muscle groups. Well, now, you know, sedentary jobs, you gotta get out, you gotta sweat, you gotta push that toxin out. Give an example, and this affects men. Men are afflicted with gout.
Yeah.
Gout is a very, very prevalent disease for men, and that big toe, you know, starts to aching and toes and pain in the feet. Well, I remember years ago I had gotten sick, had gotten past it, thought I'd gotten past it, and went back to work, and my feet started tingling. They were numb, and then they started to get to the point where they started aching. And I went to one of our healers, one of our doctors in our community in Israel, and I told her, I said, listen, my feet are hurting. What do I need to do? She said, go run the trail. I said, maybe you didn't hear what I said. I said my feet hurt. And you want me to go and run on them.
Yeah.
Well, having learned from other experiences, let me say obedience is better than sacrifice, okay? So I went and ran the trail, and indeed it went away, came back the next day, ran again, went away, and never came back, has never to this day come back. And it wasn't until years later that I really spent time meditating on what actually happened. And it's very simple. Our bodies produce in digesting food and processing the poison and pollution of the atmosphere and particulate matter and so forth, microplastics, nanoplastics, and all of that. The body's working to expel that. But toxins set up as acidic conditions in the bloodstream. And there are acids that actually can form or can settle into what are solids, not just liquid. And those solids, because of gravity, they will sink in our body to our feet and to the legs. And when they get into those areas of the bloodstream and become solid salt crystals, when you are walking around, those crystals are grating against your tissues and your flesh and the joints, and they cause pain. So when you heat up your body by exercising, sweating, and when that pressure is pushing through the bloodstream because your heart rate is increasing, it's pushing those toxins in a liquid form back up to the lungs, back out the skin, where it can be taken out of the body. Now, that's a simple resolution to a lot of the problems that we face, to get these toxins out. So exercise and sweat has to be part of our daily regime, or at least weekly regime.
Yeah.
We suggest in the community 30 minutes, 30 days a week of exercise that gets your heart rate up to an increased rate. People can play basketball, people can run, people can walk, people can go to the gym, people can do Zumba classes, you can do yoga. All of these things are part of a holistic, communal way of living. And it's easier if everybody's not a self-starter. But if you're part of a community, then you got another, hey, brother, I see you still around at such and such. Let's go walking in the morning at such and such a time. And you become part of that people-to-people ecology that helps us to advance our health consciousness, our what we call health literacy.
Okay.
People, our children know. Our children know from being told every time they come in the house, hey, you had enough water? Drink some water. Had enough water? Drink some water. So when one of the adults is not feeling very well, the child can tell you, Dode, Dode means uncle, have you had enough water today? That's called health literacy.
It's amazing that these things are coming out. Some of us have known them for years, but
Right.
seemingly now science, which a lot of people tend to believe,
Yeah.
don't know if I could use that word when it comes to science, but
Believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming out in the science.
Right.
There's something that you said. I think you said something to the effect that the effect that sugar has on your brain
Yeah.
is worse than that of certain known drugs
Yes.
like your cocaine
Yes.
and the like.
And they know this.
I've heard this probably 21 years ago.
Right.
There's also the issue of these communities around the world that are known to be blue zones.
Blue
They're called
zones.
blue
Yes.
zones
Yes.
now.
Yes. Yes.
I come from that heritage of one of our communities in the Adventist Church in Loma Linda.
Loma
You
Linda,
know about
California,
that place being a blue zone.
Right.
There's some places in Japan, I think, or in
Yes.
China, people living in the
Yeah.
mountains there. Healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
communal.
Yeah.
They get fresh air because they walk and they exercise regularly.
Right.
I see there's an upsurge of people running, which is a good thing here. But I don't know if our environment is still good
Right.
enough
Right.
because of the pollution in these urban areas.
Right.
Let's close it off, sir. Diet is very important. Lifestyle is important. Being rooted in the Word, how important is that? Being rooted in the Word of God. You did say this statement. Obedience is better than
Sacrifice.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Can you just touch on that before we end it?
Sure. We live in a world where in 2016, the word of the year for the Oxford Dictionary, the word of the year in 2016 was post-truth. We live in a world where truth has lost its value, and you know that everybody's lying. You know that lawyers are lying. You know that doctors are lying. You know that politicians are lying. And we're told that ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. We're told, in fact, one of the prophets said that truth, I believe it was Isaiah, he said, truth has been cast out into the street. And that's the world that you and I live in currently. Everybody knows that truth has no value anymore. But our lives depend on truth. How often have we said one to another, man, you make me sick, And literally, if you are around people who are lying and are deceptive and cheating and undermining, they literally can make us sick. So that's not just a phrase. Being in the presence, being in a society where truth is no longer valid and truth is no longer valued will make us all sick. So it all ties into, Yeshua talking about the dominion, the current dominion under which we live on this planet, that except that those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. And so it's all tied in. The being exposed to truth and deception or lies and deception will make you sick, and it also causes, one of the ways it makes you sick is that it causes stress, because you can't rest because, man, is he trying to get my stuff? Is he going to break in tonight? He saw me go in this door or whatever. He knows I got such and such back there, and so that stress causes our heart rate to go up. It causes all types of ailments. Our spiritual leader inaugurated maybe about 20 years ago, he made it mandatory that every adult in the community, once a month, at least once a month, had to get a full body massage or a foot reflexology massage to minimize, to reduce the stress, to take that edge off of us and to extend our lives. So everything matters where our lives are concerned.
I wonder why I'm not
And
doing
truth is
this
central to it.
massage thing often. My wife took me out for my birthday
Day
this
spa?
year. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was like, we need to have this once every 6 months or twice or once every 3 months.
Yeah.
And I've only done it once then.
that was it,
So
huh?
we need to do it again. I think it's really important. But in closing,
Yeah.
I want to read the scripture that you alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Isaiah chapter 60, verse 14. And judgment is turned away backward,
Mm-hmm.
and justice standeth afar off.
Mm-hmm.
For truth is fallen in the street,
Right.
and equity
Cannot
cannot
enter.
enter.
Cannot enter.
This is where we ended today. You know what you're supposed to do. Hit the like button. Share this one. You know we're getting stifled here, but we'll continue bringing you guests like Sar Ahmadiel Ben Yehuda, and we continue to educate the children of God. This has been another conversation on Something Nice with Dinano. Thank you very much for joining us. We truly appreciate your audience. Do the right thing, hit the like, share, and let's continue sharing this truth. Oh, yeah. Follow the right lifestyle because it is the right thing to do.
Yeah.